Hello friends, today we are going to learn about VLookup and how to do VLookup using Uipath. So we will get little basics on the VLookup Excel and then we will do how to achieve that using Uipath. It's kind of an exercise. Myself Rakesh, I am from ExpoHub and we create Uipath videos on a regular basis. Please do subscribe in case you have not. Please do like and do comment on all our videos. Thank you so much. So let's get started. VLookup. So here I have got two different files, the test Excel 1 and the test Excel 2. Let me show you the data. So here I have the customer ID in my Excel number 1, where I have the customer name, I have the order amount, okay, and in the Excel 2 what I have is customer ID. So customer ID is common between the 1 and 2. So both the files has got customer ID, which is a common field. Okay. So for VLookup, one of the criteria is you should have a common field. So this is the common field. All right. And then in the Excel 2, the extra fields that I have is order number and number of product. So if I have to get it in the Excel number 1, the order number and the number of products, generally what you do in Excel, you use a VLookup, right? So VLookup, what you do, you first, you select the common field. So this is the ID which is available on both the files. So you first indicate this is my test Excel 1. So here I want the data, right? This here I should have the output. So for that, simply use VLookup and then indicate the element you want to be searched. So give a comma and then you go to your Excel number 2 and here you indicate the entire table, isn't it? And then you give a comma and here I want 0 1 2, the second column, right? I want the second column. So here you, after selecting the entire table, you simply say 2 comma 0, that's true value, okay, and then hit enter. So what would happen, you see all the order number has come over here, right? So if you compare, customer ID 456 has the order 789456. So if you go back to the Excel file, customer ID 456. So this is how you do a VLookup. The same thing you can do it in the number of products also, the same formula. Okay, so to do this in Uipath, what we should do? So the very first thing I will be doing is I'll be using the Excel application scope, or you can use the workbook. So I have to read that table, right, from both the Excel file. So let me, in this example, let me use the workbook. So I will read range, isn't it? So I will do a read range and I'm going to read my first file, which is test Excel number 1. I'll go to my documents and select the file. Okay. And then here, one thing you need to indicate which is that sheet, because your file may have multiple sheets and I want to read this particular sheet, which is VLookup demo. So I will just copy the name here and go ahead and paste over here. Done. And then what range you want to read. So to specify a range, I am starting from A1, right? Here you have to see A1 and the last cell is what? The last cell is E13, right? E13. So A1 to E13. So let me delete this because we wanted to do that using VLookup. So I will read the range from A1 to E13. The same thing I have to mention here, A1 to E13. Okay, so done. And here on the right hand side, you have to create a data table. So Control plus K. So data table is your temporary storage of your data, Excel data. Okay, so it will store all the data of the Excel data range into this data table. Then what I have to do, if I have to run a VLookup, okay, so let me first, before I put it in a loop and make it slightly complicated for us to achieve that. So before that, what I have to do, I have to use the activity. So for VLookup, you don't have an activity called VLookup, you have an activity called lookup data table. Okay, so this is the activity that you need to use. So let's understand in simple format how this works, and then we will get into the complex mode, because just by understanding this activity you may not be able to do the VLookup. Okay, there are a lot of tricks I am going to show you, so please continue to watch this video. So let's understand how this activity works. Lookup data table. The first thing on the properties panel, right? On the right hand side of lookup data table, when you highlight, you have something called input data table. So here our input data table is what? DT1. Okay. So all I have to mention here is your data table name DT1. Done. And then lookup value. So for example, here I want to look for, let's say, 87456, and what is the coordinated value for it. So 8456, the name of this customer is Rakesh Kumar, let's say. So how to pull that? So lookup value, you have to first give the primary field, which is a common field. So here my customer ID is common field and this is the value. So I will put that in a loop. Okay, that is where I'm asking you to continue the video to understand that how to actually do a VLookup. So this is just to understand how VLookup works. Okay, so in double quotes mention the value here, and here in the lookup column, which is that column contains this value. Okay, so which column contains my value? Customer ID column. So I will simply copy this, and here I'm going to say customer ID. So this is one way. Other way is you can also mention the index. So if you are not using this, any one you can use. Column index, let's say column index will be 0. You can also use 0 and do it. So any one you want to use, you can make a choice. So here I'm using the column name. All right, and then in the output, what I want. Okay, output, this is the variable which will contain your output. So here what you do, you simply say control plus K, and let me create a variable called, let's say, OP, which is output. Okay, this OP variable will contain my final output. Now you are saying search for this particular ID in this column, and then what data you want to go as an output, that is something you have to mention it here. So for example, I want the customer name. So what you do, copy the customer name, go here, and here in the column name simply mention customer name. So what would happen, whatever the customer name is there associated with this ID would go to this output and you will see it. So let me simply use a message box and show you how that works. Okay, and here I am simply saying OP. So remember one thing, while you are using the cell value, OP, things like that, remember one thing, here your OP generally it'll get created as a string. Okay, I would, because sometimes you will have double integer values and things like that, so you better change it to a generic value. Okay, Uipath dot, so simply say Uipath dot generic. Okay, in case that doesn't come, simply type generic. Okay, and then just scroll down the list. So generic value means it can handle any kind of values. It could be string. Okay, so uipath.core.generic value. So this is the one you have to select. Okay, understood? So change the variable type. So once that is done, all you have to do is mention here as OP. Okay, and because the generic value, you convert this to string. So that way you will be able to see the data in the message box. So simple. So what I'm expecting here, when I in the lookup data table, I have mentioned 879456. For that, it should show me the customer name. Okay, this is the variable which will contain it. So let me simply run it and show you how it works. So because I am using a workbook here, right, this is a workbook activity. For that, you have to ensure you close your Excel file. So test Excel 1, but we know the value is Rakesh Kumar. So I will just close this and go back to my Uipath and run this. So you can see the value Rakesh Kumar has come. Okay, so you understood. So once you get the value, writing the value is quite easy, isn't it? But there is a trick. It's not that could be easy. So let's understand how to do a actual VLookup. So you understood how the lookup data table works. Okay, so that is my objective first. The second objective. So we covered our first objective, how the VLookup activity works. Okay, so we saw that demo. Now to do a entire sheet VLookup, okay, how do you exercise this? Okay, Now the very first thing you should remember, I need to use two different data, right? That's where I will do a VLookup. So I have read the first Excel file. Let me also read the second Excel file. Again, use a read range activity. Okay. Now in the read range activity, again you mention the file path. So I'm going to go to my second file, which is test excel2. Done. And then in the test excel2, the sheet which contains is order, right? So simply go ahead and change the sheet name to order. And then here I want to read from a1 to what is the c13, right? So simply say a1 to c13, or you can just leave it, it can also read the entire range, up to you. So you can, if you want to read the entire data, you can simply double quote and it will read the entire range. But I would say you better mention a1 and c13, so that way the processing time would be less, isn't it? So a1 to c13. Okay, so done. So now this should be stored in another data table, control plus k, and here simply say dt2. Okay, so the two data table variables would be get created, dt1 and dt2, and your output variable. Okay, fine. So now what I have to do, I have to use a for each loop. Okay, because lookup data table only picks one value at a time and shows you the output, isn't it? So for that, let's use the for each row. Okay, for all excel data table activities, you have to use for each row, not the for each loop. For each loop is for simple, strings, arrays, arrays and all that. So for each row is all about data table. So for each row you utilize, and here I want to run, because my primary value, which is the id number, customer id number, comes from data table 1, and using that it should go and search in the data table 2, and from data table 2, right, this is the data table 2, and here it should pull this order number and write it in my excel number 1, correct? So to do that, what I'm going to do, I am going to simply I am running a for each row for dt table 1, so it is going to read the entire data. After that, what I will do, I will use a lookup activity. So let me drag and drop this activity here. Okay, so here is the trick, guys. So here, instead of providing the value directly, what I want as the loop is running, it should keep on giving the values. So what I will do, I will simply say row, and let me open back the test excel1, because this is my primary file. So this is the field, right? So how do you do that? You don't want a hard coded value, rather while the for each loop is running, it should pick the one value from each row at a time, and then it should continue to search in the other data table. Okay, so for that, all I have to do, here is the customer id, right? So copy this customer id, the field name, go to Uipath, and here this is for the data table 1. So here, in like this, you have to write, let me show you in a bigger screen, dot toString. Understood? So that way it is going to, while the loop is running, it's going to pick one value from the customer id. Okay, and it's going to search. So where it should search, that you have to mention, isn't it? So where it should search, it should actually not search in data table 1, rather it should search in data table 2, isn't it? And from there it should pick the order number. So this is your data table 2, which is white in color. So order number, it should pick and show you the value as an output. So your lookup data table, rather it should point to data table 2, right? And the value, input value, come from data table 1, which is your for each row. Done. After that, here the customer id presented in which column of that sheet. So if you see that, it is also the customer id in the excel2, the field name is also customer id. Fine. Now once you're done, what you want, which field you want to retrieve from that sheet 2 or data table 2. So what field I want the order number. So what you do, copy this field name or column name and go here. So this is the output I want. Okay, and here the output should again store in the op or the op variable. Done. Now once this it does what I want, let me first show you the value in a message box, then we will write it to the excel file, right? So let me simply say message box, and here let me say op dot toString. Okay, so let's see if our logic works or not, and then we will implement that to write it to the data table 1 or the test excel 1. Okay, this is where I want the output. So now let me run it and see the message box. So let's run it. Okay, so when this error comes, and this is because you are using a workbook, you should ensure that all your excel files are closed. Okay, that I have not done it, so let me close it. So this you should remember, when you are using a workbook related activities, you have to close the excel file. If you're using an excel application scope, you don't have to. So let me run it. Okay, so you can see, it has pulled the 789,456. This is the order number. Okay, second order number, third order number, like that it is going to fetch the all the order numbers. Very good. So we got the order numbers. So what I am going to do now, I am going to write that instead of a message box. I wanted to write that. So where I want to write, I want to write in the test excel number 1, right? So for that, what I'm going to do, here is the trick, guys. So you have to use the write cell activity again from workbook. So excel, there is a excel activity, and this is the workbook activity. So I am saying write cell, and I can pinpoint the file. Let me do that. All right, and once I do that, I have to also mention the sheet. The sheet is VLookup demo, so I'll simply copy it from here, from the top, and I'm going to paste it over here. Done. Simple. Now here you have to mention the range, isn't it? Which is that range you wanted to write. So what is my range? My range is this one, so I'll simply copy this. Okay, remember, right cell, I'm not doing a right range, correct? Did you get it? So I'm doing a right cell. So right cell, there is a trick I showed in my previous chapter, right? Hope you remember that. Row index. So what I'm going to do here, in the excel file, let me open the test excel 1. So in this excel file, I wanted to write the value from D2, isn't it? D2. This is where it should start writing the value. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tweak. So to tweak where it should write the value, all I have to do, go here, and instead of A1, or I want D, right? D2. So what I will do, D plus then data table. So this is in the data table 1, right? Data table 1 dot, the for each loop is running for data table 1. So rows, you should remember this, dot index of. Okay, index of, and in bracket you have to say row. So row is your for each loop. What would happen when the for each loop is running in data table 1, for each row it has an index, so it will start with 0, then 1, then 2, and 3, and 4. So like that it will continue. So the first value will be 0. So when it is 0, if I add plus 2, right, so that will become D2, isn't it? So that is what I'm trying to tweak it here. I want to give the cell value as D2, but in a dynamic manner. Then I will say dot toString. Okay, so next time when it runs, the row index will be 1, 1 plus 2 will be 3, so it will become D2, then D3, then D4, D5, like that it will continue to write. Okay, so this is very, very critical. This you need to properly understand, and I have explained it quite well in my previous video. In case you want to see that again, you can see that, or else this should be enough for you. So this is how I'll be tweaking it. Okay, so if once this is clear, what I'm going to do, click OK. And cell content, the cell content is where in my OP, right? So I will simply say OP. So this is where it is going to write the cell content to it. Okay, now let me save it and let me run it. So before you run, ensure you close your workbooks. Done. Let me run it. Sometimes while executing the file, you might get this error. Okay, while it's trying to write, it might throw you an error. If that happens, what you do, simply use a delay activity. Give some little delay. Okay, it's so quick, is thinking some other application is using it. In fact, it's the Uipath which is using it. So 000002. So give a delay time, okay? So that way it will work. So let me run it. Okay, let's go to the output. So you can see the execution is completed. Let me open the Excel file and see if we got our data. Okay, so you can see it has got you have got all the data, right? So this is how you perform a VLookup using UiPath. So you hope this, and I would like you can also try multiple different columns and you can do the same, you have to repeat the same thing. So do that. You try to do it for the multiple columns. So I have done it for one, so I think that should be enough for you to understand how it works and how you need to logically design your workflow. So that is the main objective and we have covered that. Thank you guys for watching this. Please do like and subscribe. Do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Please do comment your questions. That helps a lot to the channel to grow. Please do comment your questions. How did you feel about this video? Please do let us know. Thank you very much. You have a wonderful day.